Morning, good afternoon, good evening. Lunchtime. Cruising with AB, the traffic ticket edition. I was thinking the other day about the first traffic ticket that I ever earned. I think I was 16 years old. Just got my driver's license at 15. I turned 16, and a buddy of mine and I decided we were gonna go out on a double date with our couple of gals, and I went and I asked my dad if I could borrow his car so we could, kind of go in luxury, I guess. We were going to go to the drive-in movies. And at that time, my dad had a 1972 Buick Riviera, and big block 455, and leather seats and air conditioning, and it was a nice car. It was a nice car, and we wanted to kind of take our dates out in a little luxury vehicle. And my dad said, "Yeah, go ahead. Be careful." And we took off. We went and picked up our dates, and as we did back then, we had to have some refreshments, so we went and picked up some beer at this bar. It was kind of probably one of the first curbsides that I can ever remember there being. It wasn't a drive-through, but you could actually pull up in this parking spot, and it said for pickup, and you could just pull up there, and a guy'd come out, ask you what you want, and he'd go back inside the bar, kind of a bar / convenience store, I guess, and he'd bring us out some beer. Of course, the drinking age was 18 back then. So we pulled up there, and we had our dates with us, and the guy came out to the car, said, "What do you want?" Said, "Give us a case of Lone Star." So we gave him the money, and comes back out with a bag, brown paper bag full of beer, and he goes, "You're not getting any change back from this." I said, "Okay, well, yeah, you sold us beer, underage, by a couple of years." Says, y'all didn't get this from here. Get on out of here. Okay. So we took off, and we were heading to the drive-in. We were down one of these streets through town. It was probably speed limits 35 miles an hour down this road. This other Riviera, same year, pulls up next to me at a stoplight and looks over at me and revs his engine, and I'm just saying, "Oh man, this guy wants to race." Of course, I'm not going to say no. I told everybody, "Okay, everybody, put on your seatbelts. We're going to race this guy real quick." And so we took off, and I guess I was doing about 85 miles an hour, and we were getting to an area where we had to go underneath a highway, overpass, and on the other side was another municipality called Castle Hills, and the road went from a 2-lane road down into only 1 lane for you to be able to drive on. So we were getting pretty close to that, and I said, "Man, I'm just going to let off and let this guy pass me." And so he passed me, and we went under the overpass, and there was a policeman that was sitting in a school parking lot. And apparently, from what he told me, is that he was pulling out to go chase after that first Riviera, but I came flying right after him, and so he pulled me over. And so here we are. We put the case of beer in the trunk of the car. And we hadn't even opened one up yet. And so the cop pulls me over, and he was kind of upset. He was a younger policeman, probably in his 20s. And he asked me, what was my hurry? What were you doing? And I was honest with him. We gave my driver's license, insurance. And he goes, I got you on radar at 60, 65, and a 35. And of course, he asked me, y'all got any beer in the car? And I said, no, sir. I said, we do have beer, and it's in the trunk. He goes, well, you're not 18. I said, no, sir, we're not 18. But I'll gladly dump it out for you, or whatever you want us to do. And he goes, well, I appreciate you being honest with me and answering my question about that. He goes, why don't you go ahead and do that? Why don't you step out of the car and dump out this beer and put all the empty cans back in the trunk of your car, and I'll write you your ticket for your speeding. Okay, you bet. So as I'm standing at the back of the car dumping out all this beer, here comes this other officer, pulls up, and this guy was probably my dad's age at that time, and been on the force for years and years and years. And he comes back and he's talking to the other officer, and this guy just flips his stuff, man. He was pissed. He came up to me and started chewing me up and down the other, about driving fast through his town and how I could have killed somebody, and just give me, well-deserved tongue lashing. And plus, you got beer in the car, I ought to run you in for underage drinking. And I was saying, yes, sir. I messed up. You're absolutely right. I messed up. And the younger officers kind of grabbing him a little bit, trying to pull him away and talk to him. Said, look, Mr. Bennett here has been very cooperative. He didn't lie about having beer in the car, even though the beer was in the trunk. And he's been nothing but respectful this whole time during this traffic stop. And of course, the older cop, well, I don't give a blank, blank, blank. He goes, what are you doing driving through my town like that? And I told him, I said, yes, sir. I said, I messed up. I messed up. And I won't do it again. He goes, you're damn right you're not going to do it again. He goes, if it had me been pulling you over, you'd been in handcuffs already. And yeah, well, okay. He probably could have done whatever he wanted to do. But that was my first ticket. I got my ticket. We hopped back in the car, and we went to the movies, and without any beer. And I ended up having to pay for that ticket. Of course, I didn't tell my dad I got a ticket in his car, but I had to go to court. I had to cut some extra yards to pay for it. I think that ticket was, it was 65 and a 35, and I think that ticket cost me a grand total of, I don't know, it was like $1 for every mile an hour. $1 for every mile an hour you're over the speed limit. It was like 30-something bucks for the ticket. So I went to court and stood in front of the judge and paid my fine, and that was it. But that was my first traffic violation. Of course, throughout the years, I got pulled over for speeding maybe once or twice. Since then, of course, I'm 61 now. Haven't been pulled over in a long time, knock on wood. But anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. And we will talk to you guys later. See ya.